Do you see the helicopter crash that happened yesterday?
Yeah, in New York?
In New York City. Yeah, really, really tragic. But not as tragic as the first real helicopter crash that happened in 1977. Now, this guy, we don't know what was wrong exactly, but he was having trouble over the water. For some reason, instead of throwing it into the drink, he tries to cut across Manhattan and land on a building, which was insanity. But he unfortunately passed away, and there was some real problems yesterday. And my, well, I hate to say this, but my thoughts and prayers are with those in New York, because they're kind of they had a little flashback about 9/11 yesterday. New York's a very weird place, and anything in the sky makes you skittish when you live in New York. But let me tell you this. In fact, I want to read the story from the New York Times from 1977. This is the day after it happened. New York Airways helicopter idling on a heliport atop the Pan Am building in Midtown Manhattan keeled over on a broken landing gear yesterday afternoon, and a huge rotor blade snapped off and slashed 4 people, cut them in half, before coming to rest 59 stories below and a block away on Madison Avenue. A 5th victim died later at Bellevue Hospital. Though whirling like a giant boomerang, the blade struck 4 people on the rooftop landing pad, killing 3 of them by cutting them in half instantly and plunging over the skyscraper's west side. About halfway down the gray tower, the blade crashed into a window and broke in 2. One piece of a blade continued to fall, whirling onto Madison Avenue and killing a woman walking on Madison shortly after 5:30 p.m., the height of evening rush hour. At least 7 persons were killed, 5 seriously. 3 of the injured were a man, his wife, and their young son. Most were said to have been struck by the runaway rotor blade or by fragments of it, or the shattered window of the Pan Am building. Authorities say the emergency medical crews encountered delays of 45 minutes of getting the injured out of the building because the elevators had been shut down on the upper floors. It was the first major accident at the controversial helicopter landing site above the tower, which rises above the ornate Grand Central Terminal on Park Avenue. The heliport was used for 26 months, but service was stopped in 1968, principally because it wasn't profitable, and flights were resumed only last February. Now, this story is being written in 1977. When the Blaze was looking for property in New York, we actually went up to the top of what was the Pan Am building. It's now the MetLife building. And because I wanted to build a glass cube studio on top of that roof, right where that airport was, just to say screw you to all the New York elites. For some reason, they didn't want me to build that. But we went in, and it is still looks like a 1960s airport lounge. It's like 3 stories tall. And then you take an elevator to go up to the roof, and you see this like bubble top of strong, bulletproof glass, where the flight tower and the pretty much is where all of the air traffic controllers were. That's all been stripped out, and it's now FBI possibly equipment. It's all listening devices and monitoring and radio devices that was installed after 9/11. So there's nothing on that roof anymore except that lobby of this pan. I mean, it's like walking into a time tunnel. It's a little like walking into like what I think Chernobyl would be today, just creepy and old and a time capsule. They say in this story, the accident occurred only a minute after the aircraft landed, after a flight from Kennedy International Airport. Its 20 passengers had disembarked, and a half dozen of the 21 new passengers had gone aboard. Suddenly, the right front landing gear crumpled, and the huge aircraft toppled on its right side near the northeast corner of the rooftop. Witnesses said scenes of horror ensued. Windows along its side shattered. One of the 4 20-foot blades of the mass horizontal rotor broke off. The blade and shards of glass were hurled into the small crowd of people waiting to board the aircraft. Many flung themselves down. Others were cut down. There was nothing but screaming metal and glass flying, one said. Everyone threw themselves to the floor, and there was blood all over everyone. It was terrible. I heard great sounds of and glass was blowing all over us. Some of the victims were cut into pieces. Shortly after the accident, the rooftop was a scene of carnage. Blood-splattered clothing and newspapers pressed the roof. It was littered with toiletry kits, magazines, books, all torn apart and bloodied. Nearby, a cart filled with baggage stood intact. After slashing through the group on the roof, the blade and the glass shards tumbled down toward Vanderbilt Avenue at the base of the skyscraper's west facade. After breaking off in a window halfway down, part of the blade hurled down, according to a fire lieutenant, and killed the woman on Madison Avenue. Other pedestrians were cut by falling glass. Can you imagine seeing this? Can you imagine the horror in 1977 of this helicopter? I mean, luckily it did not fall over the side. Parts of the helicopter yesterday did fall over the side. And those streets, people, the guy yesterday said that he was in, I'm trying to remember the name of the place he was in, but he was in like a lobby of something, and there was huge glass windows, and he said that he thought it was like a hailstorm. He said it lasted 3 minutes of just glass coming down into the streets. 3 minutes. Imagine being on the street.